So we're going to be talking about Kung Fu and the black belt skill level and how that is going to help you in your leadership and in your sales. We have Bogdan with us today to talk about how that works. Bogdan, welcome to the show. Excited to have this conversation with you.
Thank you for having me, Joe. Excited to be here. And yes, we are going to dive into the martial arts and the leadership principles that give you the edge to join the top 0.01% in your field. Whether that's real estate sales or even consulting, these are very, very powerful principles. I actually wrote a book about it. The book is free. It's going to be free forever. Very excited about that. But maybe one of the principles that we can dive deeper into is the be water, my friend, the famous Bruce Lee quote.
Be
And how
water,
to
my
use
friend.
Yes.
Okay.
And how we can use that in business.
That'd be fantastic. So Bruce Lee is one of the first that was using or made this type of Kung Fu popular. Was it Wing Chun?
He started off with Wing Chun. Wing Chun is the same martial arts style I taught for 6 years. And that was like the first ever personal development through martial arts program in the world. Like we helped hundreds of people become more confident, become more successful, get into the relationships they wanted, get promoted at work, start businesses. And this is the style that Bruce Lee started out with, and I think had a huge, huge impact on his thinking, on his greatness, on his mastery. Because the beauty of Wing Chun is that we rarely talk about technique, right? Technique is step one, two, three. It's all about principles. A
Okay.
principle, you can do it with your hand, you can do it with a stick, you can apply it in business, you can apply it in relationship. A principle is universal. So that's what made it unique and such a good fit with personal development slash leadership. Now, you don't have to know martial arts to make these principles work for you. And somebody asked me, like, when I showed them the book, like, how are you going to teach me martial arts from the book, right? That's not what we're talking about, right? The idea is to take the mindset of the highest performing martial artists and the mindset of the highest performing leaders, their strategies, and use them in your life to make meaningful leaps forward.
So is Kung Fu, the principle of it, always about control and mindset and focus? Is that less than that?
Great question. So actually, the meaning of Kung Fu is enlightenment through hard work.
Okay. I like that. How does that apply? What give us a little idea on the principles?
Well, it's a pretty big idea, right? So it's kind of like taking yourself through the forge of purifying impurity. So, for example, one of the ideas that I talk about in the first chapter is fear is ferocity in disguise. This is something you kind of learn when you train martial arts. You realize that when you're afraid, the fear is actually a huge friend. Think of a mother whose child is trapped under a car. There's no uncertainty in that moment. There's no, what should I do? The only thing you can do is lift the car, and she does. So basically, when you remove the uncertainty, all you have left is raw power, ferocity. These are one of the elements of the martial mindset. So, how do you eliminate uncertainty? Let me give you a story that will be relevant to your audience. The number one real estate agent in my area, he became a client. We started working together. His most valuable property was around 800,000 euros. I'm actually in Europe. I'm in Romania, so that's why I'm counting in euros. I had him let go, like clean house of the cheap, pain in the ass properties, and in 1 month, he got one property for 1.2 million. He got another one for 1.6, and he was in talks to get I think it was an apartment complex for 4 million euros. Why did that happen? Because we removed the uncertainty, we removed the self-doubt, the negative self-talk, I want to do this, but you know what? I don't want to disappoint these people. It was all about, okay, I am the number one real estate agent. I should act like that. If I want to be better, right? If like in the region, if I want to be national, I need to think, feel, and act like somebody like that. So what would that person do? They would go after bigger properties, right? And the thing that was causing a bit of burnout for him was, funny enough, his assistant.
Okay.
He had hired his assistant without a trial period. He liked what he heard in the interview, but then she wasn't really doing much. She was actually an expense rather than an asset. because he raised his confidence, because he raised his self-worth, because he saw himself differently, and he was dealing with less uncertainty, he put out a job offer, attracted a guy who was really, really good, but the difference was that he took the guy through a trial period. The guy was very much like him, passionate, ambitious. They were kind of bouncing off ideas off of each other when they were going to see a client. The guy was amazing. He immediately fired his assistant and got this guy who was actually an asset. So in short, a lot can happen once you go deeper, you go through that veil of uncertainty and you step into certainty.
Let's dig into this a little bit before we move on. You mentioned two things that I think are really important. One is always hire someone with a trial period. Don't commit right up front. It should be a 30, 60, 90-day program and track it. No doubt on that. The other thing that I found interesting, and I've heard this with others, when you're hiring, a lot of people will think they should be hiring somebody that's opposite them to make up their inefficiencies or where they're weak. Depending on the role, that's may not work. You may need someone like, sounds like this agent needed, someone that has that same mindset, that same drive, that's going to help them move their business forward instead of being somebody that's plugging the holes. And eventually that agent is probably going to have somebody that's going to take up the weak spots, yet he needed somebody with him, mindset, same kind of player that's going to move the business in the right direction, the same direction he wants to go. So that's really important.
I think it really depends, right? And it's sometimes you want lazy people because lazy people are extremely creative and they see patterns that you don't. They see
Right.
how to do things easier and faster. But what is required is having a clear, exciting vision statement that everybody can rally behind. SpaceX builds an interplanetary species. Microsoft, back in the day, it was a computer on every desk. Very exciting for the right people. So if you're hiring somebody who's lazy, but they're 100% sold on the vision, the big vision, they will be an asset. But a lot of leaders don't really know how to do that yet, and it's not easy to do. I spent 2 hours with a client and his team to come up with their vision statement. It takes time, and that was well before AI, right? Most business owners were like, okay, what is your why? Why are you running the business? They go on this rant and you just can't wait for them to shut up.
Yeah,
You're not going to attract anybody meaningful that way. Yeah.
that's right. So let's go back to that change of mindset. It sounds easy, and I know it's not. So how did he go? How did he get over that fear and that mindset change? What are some of the practices that are necessary to make that happen?
It is a bit of a process of turning your dragons into your best friends. Everybody wants to slay their dragons, slay their demons. But you've trained this demon your whole life. You've fed this demon your whole life of fear and self-doubt. That's a pretty powerful entity you have inside of your heart. So when I turn them into a friend, one of the ways of doing that is going a level deeper. Because when you're feeling fearful, say, okay, I'm scared of something. How can I turn this around, turn the yin into a yang and use it to my advantage? Maybe I'm afraid because there's some goals, there's some gaps in my strategy. Okay. Or maybe the fear is actually trying to tell me that I am ready and I just need to relax, sit back and slow down and be more in an observer mindset. And the biggest one, sorry, Joe, you wanted to jump.
Yeah, that takes a person to be really, really honest with themselves, which isn't always easy to unveil what they think they're doing and who they really are, and where they were thinking, and what it really means. That's not easy to come to grips with for a lot of people.
And that's why the best players in the world have coaches, have mindset coaches. Because, I mentioned this in the podcast, you have your nose close to your mouth, but you still can't tell that your breath stinks.
Of that.
You need somebody to tell you stink. But most people are like, no, I'm good. And they stink up the whole business. No, you need somebody from the outside to show you, hey, here's what I think is really going on from the outside, what I think is going on in your mind, in your heart, or here's where you're underperforming. Right? A lot of your audience, they're high performers. They have a lot of yes people around them, people who are impressed with their minimum effort. No, you need somebody who can see the real you, right? So like you asked how we did it. I showed them who they are. Like my number one skill is pulling out people's greatness. And I said, look, here's who you are. And here's how you're showing up. Which one do you want? Right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. So let's go back to that Bruce Lee's quote. How
Yeah.
does that fit into all this? Or
Yeah,
the theory?
it's a very powerful principle. So we have five elements, right, in Chinese philosophy. There's water, wood, earth, and metal. Fire. I skipped fire. There we go.
Yeah, I thought so. Waiting for that one.
Yeah, so we have water, wood, fire, earth, and metal. So water is one of the five, but it's extremely powerful because water basically means, right? Bruce Lee said, you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. This is exceptionally powerful when you are being the element of water. You're very flexible. You can adapt to the person in front of you. You can adapt to the person, to the situation you're dealing with. Water is resilient.
Gotcha.
People think I need to be resilient. It's stiff. No, you will break.
That's a huge amount of awareness you need to be able to understand the situation you're in and how you're acting with that.
Mhm.
How's that? That's not easy to happen. That's got to be trained, I would think, a part of the training.
Yes. Yes. But you will recognize it instantly. I'll give you an example, right? So let's say you have a disgruntled client. Most people want to fight fire with fire, but that just leads to burning everything down. It's not very wise. So when the client says, "Hey, you really screwed up here," don't say, "No, no, I didn't. It's your fault," or a team member, whatever. Take it. So water is a spiral, right? You take it and you bring it back. Say, "Hey, you really screwed up here. Oh, I see what you're saying. I understand. What do you feel would have been a better solution?" And I bring it back to them. Do I
Very
100%?
good.
Yeah.
Let's talk more. You mentioned about burnout. All right. So obviously, if somebody's feeling burnt out, sometimes they don't know the reasons why. Where does somebody start to analyze? Obviously, they can call you and bring you on as a coach. If they're not going to pick up the phone and do that, how can somebody just start saying and start to really look at what their true problem is? This is the symptom is being burnt out. How do they figure out what the problem is?
When your dream is starting to feel more like a nightmare.
Gotcha. And in many cases, in the real estate world and in any business, and real estate is an analogy for just about any kind of business. It's entrepreneurial. It's all about that one person. Sometimes it doesn't meet the expectations and you just feel like you're on a treadmill sometimes and you just burn it.
Yeah.
How does somebody start to realize how to start to turn that?
Well, a conversation I had with my dad in my 20s, I was fresh out of college, and my dad had been running his business for 15 years, but really the business was running him. And specifically, it was running him into the ground. Despite having a team, my dad was exhausted. He wanted to sell the equipment in the business, not even properly sell the business because it wasn't sellable. Without him, there was no business. And he wanted to get a 9 to 5, but I knew that if he had done that, he would have immediately become depressed, like chronic depression, and then dead in a few years. So I knew I had to say something and do something about it. And I said, "Dad, here's the problem is in the business. Problem is you.
That's heavy.
You, I mean, yeah, coming from your 20-year-old son who has no life experience, right? I'm surprised I survived that meeting."
But
He said, "What do you mean?" Kind of like shocked from what I said. I said, "Look, you're acting like an employee in your own business. That's not your job. Your job is to sit back, be an observer, look at the business as you were at a control panel and think, okay, if I just make this adjustment, what's going to be the output? Is it going to be better? Is it going to be worse?" That's what the job of a business owner really is. And he's like, "Hey, I never thought about it." So my dad had the wisdom to listen to a kid who is, kind of challenging him.
right.
And a few months later, he finally hired somebody to take over 70% of the tasks. But the problem was, and this is huge for most people in a leadership role, he believed like a lot of people, nobody can do the job as well as I can. I cannot trust anybody with this. That's the number one reason for burnout.
Yeah.
You're not being a leader in that moment. You're being a babysitter. That's the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. So in real estate agents, that is such a huge problem where they feel, and it is true, their image is everything. And they feel like they are the only ones that can make that happen. And they're so reluctant to bring anybody in to even handle some of the most menial tasks because they have the thought that every little thing they do is critical so critical that they're the only ones that can do it. and it's going to ruin the client experience. It's going to mess up the deal. And that is not the case at all. Just like your father figured out, you
Yeah.
need to figure that out. And did your father did he build systems around that before you brought that person in?
My dad is very much fly and build along the way. So
Good.
he figured it out. 10 years later, he properly sold the business, bought a house close in the mountains, retired with my mother, saved his marriage because, his marriage was on the rocks when we had that conversation. He just had time for nothing, right?
Right.
But yeah, everything changed when he changed. And circling back to real estate agents, actually having some middlemen, I call them emissaries. Having emissaries to talk to the big clients first before they get access to you is very powerful. Especially if the client's like, oh, I want to talk to you because you get, yeah, great. You're the brand. You're the face of the thing, right? They know you. Great. Have them talk to your assistant first. Have a proper assistant, not like the one my
Right.
client had. And like, okay, cool. Let me schedule you in to talk to John or whatever, or have somebody to kind of do 90% of the sales process for you, and they're like, let's see if this is a good fit, right? Have them qualify your potential client before they talk to you. And then when they get to talk to you, it's the third person effect. They feel very important. They feel seen. They're ecstatic. You just step in, do 10% of the work, close the deal, and you're done. So much better.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's where the difference become. Everyone hears it's a lot working on your business or in it. And the big difference in your scenario, what you just gave out, is you're working on your business. You have people actually running the tasks and you're running the whole thing. That's where you end up being a business owner. Otherwise, you're just a doer. You're just an employee, like you were saying earlier.
Yeah. And you got to make a choice at the end of the day. Did you give the 9 to 5 for the 24/7?
Right.
Where's the freedom that you wanted?
Right. All right. So they understand the problem. They start to realize they need to start building some leverage and start being on the business. That sounds simple when we were talking about it here. You mentioned earlier the years of thoughts that are holding us back, putting fear into our brains. And I envy the people that don't have that, which are the few that have come across. Or at least they think they're that way. There's some people that just have no doubt in their success. The majority of the people out there do have those thoughts going through their head, and they have to work with them.
Yeah.
So what are some techniques to be able to train the brain? And I assume this is the hard work that Kung Fu does, where you start to get mastery.
Yeah. It's kind of like, learning to punch really hard. You're not born with it. We're not born like as humans, our bodies are actually not designed to fight each other. The hands are extremely brittle, right?
Yeah.
You're more designed to caress than to punch somebody in the face. And yet we still kind of learn these skills because we love to play with different elements of life as humans. So my point is, it's just a muscle you develop over time, right? If you train your bicep for a long time, then it's out of balance, then you need to train your tricep for a long time. One of my beliefs that, my limiting beliefs is nobody cares. I grew up feeling like nobody cared about what I wanted, what I really wanted to do with my life. And I held on to this belief. I still have it, right? Anytime I do some sort of outreach and people are like, oh, I don't care about your book, it still hurts,
Yeah, it
right?
does. Why do we let that happen? Why I get the same feeling. I was making calls yesterday, and I've so many people answer the phone and great conversations, helping a couple of people. And then I get that one call where they just like shut me out. And it's like, I feel that.
Yeah.
Why? Why does that matter?
Well, it comes from having parents who were extremely busy with life, who wanted to provide, didn't have the mental capacity or, let's say, access to the information required to say, heck, give your kid 5, 10 minutes of meaning. It will do wonders for their client, for their confidence. Ask your kid about what they think about this. Try to get to know your kid as an individual rather than my kid. And growing up that way, what's drilled into, or at least what was drilled into my head, you don't matter.
Yeah. Did everything stem from that childhood, the way we're brought
Probably.
up?
If we go into the metaphysics of things, there's you choose your parents before you come into this world. I think to become a coach, that is the environment you need to grow up in. To deeply care about people, You have to go through this type of training of, feeling like you are powerless to understand empowerment.
Okay. So what are some of the ways that when somebody's feeling that pressure, they're not getting at life what they want, they're burning out, they're not hitting their
Right, right,
goals, or maybe
right.
they are hitting
Let's
their goals?
wait. Let me before we need to hit this a bit deeper, right? The
Yeah.
I don't matter aspect.
Okay.
A belief is valid if it is universally valid. Here's what I mean. If you say nobody cares and yet you have one person who cares, then obviously the belief is false. It has no
Mhm.
substance because it says nobody cares. So that thing, that phrase is not real. It does not exist in physical reality. That's one element. The second element that helped me in dating and in relationships back in my 20s, like I hated rejection so much, was knowing who you are. This circles back to the water element because yes, water does become the teapot. Water does become the cup. But water never forgets what it is. Water is always going to be water, whether it's gaseous, liquid, or solid. It's still going to be water. That never changes. So knowing who you are in all of these different circumstances, in all of these different situations is instrumental to moving forward. Somebody says, "Screw you. No, I don't want it." It's like, okay, I know what I did. I know what I can do. I've done it so many different This person doesn't know who I am. I do. So what? You don't like it. So that's so silly, right? When I would get rejected in my 20s, that was the pivotal thing. I started laughing it off and say, "Oh my God, this person, said no to a really fun night, to a really fun date, whatever." Just
Yeah.
moving forward. You know who you are.
Yeah, and I think I totally agree with that. A lot of times, I think we forget that they don't know who we are. They don't know our messaging. They don't know what we can do. They're making an assumption that we have no control over, and we put a
Yeah.
lot of weight on that.
Yeah.
It's their ignorance.
It's not even, it's not necessarily even ignorance. I just don't need, I don't want an apple, right? An apple is good for you. You know what? I just don't feel like eating an apple today or right now. Fine. What am I going to do? Force you to have an apple?
Right. True.
Am I going to stop selling apples because you don't like apples today? No.
Yeah. So we all get that feeling. The agent gets that feeling, or the person, whoever that leader is getting that feeling, that negative punch.
Yep.
One is, okay, I feel the punch coming. I know it's
Hmm.
coming. I can feel it hitting me. I
Yeah.
know it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
How does somebody deal with that? Can they stop the pain? Can they not get hit? Or how do they absorb that? Is it absorbing it and moving it forward into something else?
Is it training or is it sparring? That's the first question. What's the context? Because if it's training, then yes, I would rather take the punch to understand what that feels like so that I get better, right? But then in time, I can dodge the punch last second as long as I have the bigger picture and I'm in the moment.
Yeah, I like that.
And
Being in the moment's
and then it
hard.
depends on the context. If your house is burning, you're going to be very much in the moment.
True.
Yeah. It's about like choosing it. And you can't be in the moment all the time, right? I mean, come on. It's just about choosing the right moments to be in the moment at the end of the day.
How do we turn that on and off? And there's times when we have to be on, whether it's a
Mhm.
presentation or phone calls or conversations. How do we turn that on when we need to?
Yeah, I'm in the process of doing that for myself, to be honest. And I started by deleting YouTube from my phone. I spent way too much time on YouTube.
That's good. I've tried that a few times with others, and I end up putting them back on because I find myself wanting to do something quickly. And now I'm back into the rut of watching stupid stuff for too long.
Yeah, man. There's nothing that will kill your self-esteem faster than social media.
Were you saying that stuff's not all real?
Well, I don't know. Some British scientists have analyzed top posts on Instagram, and they concluded that some of that might not be real.
Let's talk about that because mine is often messed up with the images and comparing yourself to others. What does your training do about handling that? Are you coaching it? Not training.
I think you should look at the black belts, look at how they think, feel, and act, but only compete with the belt right in front of you. Your only job, let's say you're a white belt, your only job is to be better than the yellow belt in front of you. That's it. Spend time with the black belts, learn from the black belts, ask questions, train with them, but only compete with the person in front of you. And in time, that's going to be the black belt.
I like that. Yeah, I used to tell my friends when doing the 5K, she was always feeling slow. And I was like, well, all you have to do is look at the person in front of you. If that person in front of you has a body that's better than yours, you want to stay with them or pass them. And if somebody in front of you that the body's not as good as you and way out of shape, you better pass 'em. Just pass 'em. Kept her going, kept that focus, like you're saying, staying present with what's right in front of you and work with that in the reality of what's in front of you. Challenge, as you mentioned, Bogdan, there's a lot of stuff out there that's not real. How does somebody find that reality? Is it, and there's so much being sold to us all the time. You got gurus out there saying this is the best way to do that. You do this one tactic, you're going to make $1 million, and all these different things coming at us. How does somebody really dig down and find out who's true to follow?
I would say following your higher mind. Here's what I mean. Right? There's a distinction between your physical mind, your conscious mind, and your higher mind. The only purpose of the conscious mind is to experience the now. That is the only thing it can properly do. Be in the moment. The higher mind, however, that's where all your creativity, your ideas, your access to higher wisdom, that's your GPS. The way you access that higher mind is by following your highest excitement, your passion. People, it's not a coincidence that we say follow your passion. Your higher mind speaks in your heart first, and then it goes up to the brain. And in between, you have your beliefs, right? That's the filter of what gets through from your higher mind. And what do I mean by that? The path for you specifically, you can find it by listening through your higher mind. Sometimes it makes absolute no sense why your higher mind is telling you to go left when everybody's going right. But that's exactly where you need to be. Simple example is Joe Rogan. He started podcasting when everybody told him it was a stupid idea, but he did it because he loved it. He was passionate about it. That's the path. And sometimes you might really, really resonate with one guru up until a point. That's exciting. And then when it doesn't feel exciting anymore, like honestly, really exciting, not shiny object syndrome. That's not excitement, that's fear. When you're genuinely excited to listen to somebody else, follow that other person, and in time, you will carve your path, your own way of doing things. The biggest trap you can fall into is that I fell into. Follow my system. It worked for me. It's going to work for you. Maybe. But 95% of clients in any business consulting program, they don't get results because the system, they cannot make the system work for them or adjust it for them. It's not your job to follow some religion, some dogma. Your job is to create your own way of doing things. And that's how you become a category of one
That's
in the
right.
market.
That's scary territory. And
Yeah.
actually, I'm gonna have to send you a check for this because you're hitting a lot of points right now that I'm going through. Yeah, I just started a new business,
Yeah.
and I've been talking about it for a while, getting great, solid feedback. I'm on the right path. There's one person that challenged me, and I felt
Hmm.
so good that he was like, "What are you doing?" And to have that tension to test me was really important, and then to have that pressure of, okay, here we go. Is this real? Now I have to, it's concept, the idea, the systems are in place. Now we gotta sell it and make it
Hmm.
work. That pressure is huge because here
Yeah.
we go. Right. And actually I wrote down in my journal this morning, the pressure's on and I'm using that to propel me forward through the headwinds. Right. I'm using that pressure of the engine coming out of the
Yeah.
jet to push me
Yeah.
forward, not crush me.
That's perfect.
That's keeping that mental ideal in my head that I know I'm on the right path. I know I'm doing something that's good here. And
Yeah.
so that's what keeps it going. And that's hard to do when those pressures are on. How do people focus on that and test its validity?
Here's the visual that I'm getting. There needs to be a pressure differential for you to move forward, right? So for you to go this way, there needs to be higher pressure here than here, correct?
Yeah.
So maybe all that is required is to look at yesterday and ask yourself if you were going through more pressure yesterday than today. Does this resonate? The only reason why you might be going through more pressure today than yesterday is because maybe you have improved nothing compared to yesterday, or that you did improve, but you're just not taking notice of it, and you're lying to yourself that you're the same person you were.
Yeah, I think there just this is personal to me and with a lot of others. You just hit a huge point where that pressure is pushing people forward or they're making progress and they don't want to recognize it. They don't
Yeah,
feel like it's enough.
yeah.
They have this image they're going to get from here to here in 3 seconds when it might take 2 hours or might take, you want it in a week and it might take a month. And it's just little increments of progress. That's hard to see when you're grinding for that end of the month or that end of the week program, those real numbers or the real trackable success.
I think it helps to kind of document yourself doing it, not necessarily just to publish it. You can if you want to, like publish it online, but let's say you're recording all of your sales calls and since the start. And a month has gone by, let's say you've had 10 sales calls, and you're like, "Oh, I haven't made any sales this month. Crap. What am I going to do?" But then you look at the first recording and you notice how genuinely horrible you were. And then you look at number 10 and you're like, "Oh, okay, not bad, not bad." And all of a sudden you find the confidence of, okay, if I could improve, if I gotten better, then I'm probably going to get a sale soon.
Yeah. And even if not recording it, whether it's a call or an in-person meeting, just being aware of what's being said and how you said it last time or what you're saying right now. And you said it earlier, being present and really almost having like an above body looking down view of what's going on so that you are taking it all in and really hearing and what's going on.
I'll give you a funny example. I started doing podcasts after, I finished the first draft of the book. I started doing podcasts to promote the book. And like, great job, right? I often have a tendency to give myself more credit than I should. Like, great job with those interviews. And then I listen to the interviews. Joe, I'm not kidding. After every single sentence, I would say, right, and then right, and then right. I'm like, oh my God, like this is not usable. But
Yeah.
but you just noticing that it may okay, I need to pause. And I'm also learning right now, like at the start of the podcast, I was like, okay, I need to speak less. I'm talking way too much. I need to shut up a bit. So it's you're always learning, you're always improving.
Actually, Bogdan, I was noticing you don't rush into a conversation. You don't mind. You're comfortable with that quiet space between a question and answer or a thought and the continual. That's hard. A lot of people cannot do that. They want to fill that void with chatter. There we go. It's huge.
It's extremely useful because it allows people to think about what you just said and digest what you just said. And they're actually in that pause, in that space, they're repeating their own thoughts about what you just said. And they're much more likely to remember their own thoughts and what you said.
Yeah, it's actually interesting since so many times I get into one of these conversations or any conversation, and when it's a fast, speedy conversation, ideas will pop into my head that I want to talk about later. Yet there's so much information coming at me that I forget what that was. In this conversation, I have been able to hold on to those thoughts because it's been a pace that allows the fluidity of the conversation.
Thank you. I'm happy to hear that.
This has been a great conversation. I'm enjoying this. And let's go back to talking about the people that we want to help influence us and choosing those who we truly want to emulate. We're talking about the people that are not real online and all these stories that really are not our story or the person that's listening to it. We just, out of fear, like you were saying, you just chase that shiny object. Finding those people that are really going to bring out the best of us and challenge us is not easy.
Nobody's real online. Nobody's real in real life. There's no such thing. And the simple reason is that we all play a character depending on the circumstance. We're not the same person when we're with our parents. We're not the same person when you're at work. You're not the same person when you're dealing with your kids. You're putting on not necessarily a show, but you are using it's kind of like You are the observer and you using the character as a tool in that moment. So the only, let's say, or the closest to authenticity that you have, whether you're an online creator, a guru, or just somebody who's looking for somebody to help them, the most authentic version of that is kind of the observer energy mindset that we were talking about earlier. That said, once you start to understand that you are this, you're not the body, you're bigger, you are this observer, it doesn't matter what the consultant, the coach that you get. You might have a great experience, but oftentimes the best experiences, the ones that you grow from the most, are the horrible experiences.
Yeah.
But the worst thing, the absolute worst thing you can do is sit there and ask yourself, should I go with this person? I don't know. Should I go because maybe I'm going to have a bad experience? Who cares? Have a bad experience. It's going to be a great experience because it will help you grow. You will learn so much more. Just move.
That's no, that's not always easy to do when to that negative experience. And I totally agree. Every experience, good or bad, and like you're saying, the bad ones give you the biggest lessons. Turning that into that positive and finding that nugget on your own,
What if it
it's hard.
what if it's easy?
Let's how do you make that easy?
You look at all of the quote unquote negative events of your life and you realize that every single one, without exception, opened the door to something better.
Okay,
So if something negative happens, but then I get something better that I couldn't even imagine, then can you actually have a negative experience? Uncomfortable? Yes. But is it negative or is it positive?
there's a lot of emotion in those negative situations. How does somebody pull back and pull back from the situation, then peel back all the negativity and feelings to get to that?
By reminding yourself that every negative event in your life opened the door to something better. And that said, you're probably going through something similar right now because that is the pattern. And if this is the pattern, something positive or something negative leads to something positive, then you know you cannot actually fail, that it's always going to serve you. And the moment you do that, you start to feel a lot lighter and stress goes away. And when stress goes away, that's when you're actually using your brain's full capacity. Because when we're stressed, we're stupid. I'm speaking from my own experience. I should have said, when I'm stressed,
No,
I'm
no, no,
stupid.
no, right?
Because it depends who
Outsta
you are. Some people will say, Bogdan, it's not just when you're stressed that you're stupid.
So why is stress stupid?
From a physiological perspective, it limits the capacity of your brain's ability to receive information. So when we're stressed, we're actually in fight or flight. So fight or flight is not a moment to be creative, to find new solutions, to see new options. You get tunnel vision. So that's what I mean when I say you're stupid or we become stupid.
Yeah. How does someone get out of that though? What pulls them out? And is that a necessary process? Is it necessary to feel that negativity to learn that lesson? Is there value in being there and
Yes.
staying there at all?
Just like in martial arts, there is value in pain, but for a short time. If I only get my ass kicked, or if I'm training nonstop 24/7, there's no room for me to rest to get stronger. I do want some stress to make my psyche and my body stronger, but that's for like what, an hour and a half, 2 hours a day max. Then I need to be relaxed, right? So, yes, it is necessary to be stressed. It is necessary to be scared. But then when you step back, look at the bigger picture, and you realize, you know what? What if this fails? Okay. Have I failed before? Yes. Did I die from that? No. Right? Did the world end? No. So, reminding yourself who you are, that even if you do fail, life is going to go on. Maybe there's something more exciting, something better right around the corner. Gives you a lot of freedom. Again, it's not easy to do. I'm speaking from a lifetime of doing this consistently, of something can go my way, panicking, wanting to burn everything down and start it over again, like, oh, wrong niche, wrong business, wrong whatever. It's not easy, but you suffer until you don't need to suffer any longer. And a lot of the suffering is self-inflicted.
How does someone come to the realization that they're in the wrong spot? And there are real estate agents that shouldn't be real estate agents. yet they keep going. What's that light that has to come on, and how do they find that where it says, okay, we need to scrap what I'm doing and start somewhere else?
It's
And
no
I don't
longer
mean just
giving
real
you
estate
energy.
agent. That applies to any business,
Mhm.
anybody. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an excellent question. If it's no longer feeding you with energy, then there's probably something else. Or let's say, it's draining you more than feeding you with excitement, with passion. And you've tried to add a bit of passion. You've tried to delegate the task. Let's say ideal scenario, you found somebody really good you could delegate the energy drainers to, and you're still not passionate about it, then yes, maybe there's something new that you should explore. But not before you've gotten really good at building systems and the teams necessary, because just that might make the work fun again for you.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's a difference between burnout and complete misalignment. Burnout, I think, is what you were saying earlier. You just like, oh, you just said you just got to build the right systems, get the right people, and then misalignment is you're just in the wrong space.
Yeah.
It might not be the industry or the business you're in. It could be the misalignment with the way you're doing it, who you think you are and who you really are, who you're trying to be, and also misaligned with the people that are you're surrounding with
Yeah.
yourself with.
Yeah. And sometimes even your clients. Sometimes you need to clean house.
That's right. Firing a client, that feels so good. I've only done it twice,
Yeah.
and it's so for anybody that's in a situation where it's just there's like you're saying, if there's so much negativity coming at you and it's not giving you any energy, it's sucking your energy. Those you can really kind of almost see them pretty quickly sometimes.
Yeah.
You got to cut it quick.
Yeah. And that takes guts.
But let's get back to kung fu.
Sure.
And what other principles have we not spoken of or discussed that apply to mastering leadership and yourself?
I think a really important one is punching behind the target. For everyone, tuning in, if you just hold up your hand and you focus on your palm and you just tap it a bit, you're going to notice a level of power. But just same idea, if you just focus behind your palm and you tap it a bit, you're going to notice that you have access to so much more power. A trap that leaders and high performers fall in, and when my martial arts school became relatively successful, was that I hated my life. The goal that I worked 6 years for like an absolute maniac was meaningless. I didn't punch behind the target. I had no plan after, okay, when the school is gonna do well, what am I gonna do? Right? Am I gonna extend? Am I gonna franchise? Am I gonna stabilize it? Nothing. For me, it was just like I just want to make a good living out of this. And that was it. And when I did it, it felt empty.
Yeah.
So have a goal, but also think of what you're going to do next after the goal. How are you going to make a difference in people's lives, in your life? How are you going to tap into higher levels of joy, excitement, passion, challenge?
What tools should people be using to one define that and then one to keep
Mhm.
that present?
Wooden board. Punch a wooden board every morning. That idea will sink in. I'm joking. Please don't do that. Some people will break their hands doing it. It's really easy. Like think of a goal that you have. Just write it down. Like you just do it once, and then you realize, okay, cool, this is nice. You're probably going to do it again for other goals. But let's say, hey, I want to hire a team of 10, or I want to be the number one real estate agent in my area. Great. What's next after that? I want to be the one who trains the next number one real estate agent in my area. Ooh.
Yeah.
Now
Cool.
all of a sudden you're not just a master. All of a sudden you're a master maker.
What's the value in that?
In being a master maker, connection and contribution is the value in that. You do it for yourself, first of all.
So by giving, that's actually selfish.
Of course, everything you do for others, you do for yourself. Everything you do for yourself, you do for others. If we are all one, that's the logic.
Nice. All right, Bogdan, let's pull this together. This conversation has been fantastic, very empowering, very enlightening. Going back to the Kung Fu and what you know now about those principles and how it has changed your life.
Yeah.
What would you have told that little boy you were talking about earlier? What would you tell him now?
Yeah, I actually wrote him a letter in my book. That's how the book starts out.
Ooh,
And I like for the first 3 to 4 times I read the letter, I just bawled my eyes out. The thing that my younger self desperately needs to know is that he does matter and he's not alone and that he's loved. Yeah.
Nice. Is that a recommendation? People write a letter to their little self, their old self.
Oh yeah, if you haven't cried in a long time, yeah, I recommend it.
What was that? The crying. What caused that? What was the emotion that brought the tears?
It's everything you wish you heard, but then yeah.
Looking back at that, were there signs of that you just didn't recognize, or was it?
Yeah, it's like, our parents have one way of expressing love and being there, but you need it in a different way. I'm a parent myself. There's plenty of ways I'm probably going to traumatize my daughter moving forward. I just hope I have the patience to kind of recognize it and say and listen to her and really see her for who she is and be present enough to feel into what she needs in that moment. But without growing up that way, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today. I
Right.
really, really love working with people. I really, really love having conversations like this. 1 degree to the left or to the right, I wouldn't be here. So even though I tear up, I don't see it as a weight around my neck. I see it as what contributed to this.
Yeah, that's powerful. Yeah, this conversation is you've been so vulnerable in sharing what you do, what you've done, and being super honest. That is in itself a super powerful trait, not just for your own health, but for others to hear it. It's
Thank
huge.
you. And you see them because you recognize all of this in yourself as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
I haven't had this awareness for that long. I've known bits and pieces of it, and it hasn't been till recently where it's starting to gel.
that is something to be celebrated. You know, it's not like somebody took you through, like when you were 5, you went through this personal development course and like, I don't want to learn about this stuff. It's something you uncover and it's all coming at the right time, right? So it's amazing. And the fact that you're sharing this, it's like, it's funny. Everybody says everybody has a podcast these days. Really? How many of our friends have podcasts? Like,
Right.
it takes guts to do something like this and to be vulnerable and to share stuff and be curious and ask questions. It's not an easy thing to do.
And now I haven't done it alone. I had coaches
Yeah.
to help both business and leadership wise, personal wise. And I don't know which came first. The people that have been starting to gather around me in a natural way are the right people. So I'm not sure which came first, the awareness and seeking out those people, or just when I found them, I held on to them, or that that is helping to create this, or was it the other way around?
What was first was you, the excitement of exploring this space, and then the people came.
Most likely. I think it's what you're the gift you have and you've brought to the show is that vulnerability and willingness to open up and give, share.
Yeah, that's my job.
All right, Bogdan, how can people get in touch with you? What's who's going to benefit from working with Bogdan?
Ideally, leaders, you have your own team, whether it's 1, 2, you're leading someone, or 10,000, I want to talk to you. It's not an easy job dealing with people, dealing with all of their challenges. It can take a huge toll. So have a conversation, read the book, join one of our free events, get to know us. Whether you're a real estate agent or a business owner or working in corporate, the idea is that you're leading a few people and you just want it to be more fun, easier, manageable. You want to turn if it feels like a kindergarten right now, you want to turn it into a top-notch Harvard University. Yeah, let's talk.
Cool.
When you get to the end, at the part of greatness and mastery, I promise it will all make sense.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your wisdom and sharing everything that you're doing.
I appreciate you too, Joe.
For a viewer, please subscribe, share this one. You'll help change people's lives. This is important stuff. Everybody needs to hear it, be best, and have fun.
Awesome.